Good morning, and thank you for joining NC Tech's Diversity Benchmark Initiative webinar to learn more about an important project that we're embarking on in partnership with the Diversity Movement, RacePoint Global, and Inclusion Analytics. I'm Michelle Kelton, and I'm excited to be kicking off today's call. NC Tech is the voice of North Carolina's thriving tech sector, and we are very proud of the work we do around the state in the areas of professional development and professional networks, government affairs, sector promotion, and talent development. With nearly 600 member companies and organizations from the mountains to the coast, NC Tech is your partner in growth. In 2015, we introduced our first annual research report, the State of the Tech Industry Report, which shows how North Carolina's tech sector stacks up against other states in many areas. We added a refreshed monthly IT job trends report, and just last month, we released our first in what will be an annual Tech Innovation Index, comparing our state's metros to other metros around the country in the areas of tech talent supply, tech talent demand, and innovation. We are pleased to share with you today a new research initiative. It's a diversity benchmark. And in order for this to be impactful, we need your companies and organizations to participate. So I hope you will be as excited as NC Tech and our partners are to embark on this journey. We are thrilled to announce that SAS, one of North Carolina's biggest tech success stories, was our first company to sign on to participate in this project. Now, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Tracy Sternberg, to share a little bit about how we got here. Tracy.
Thanks, Michelle. Diversity and inclusion programming has been on NC Tech's calendar events for many years, and that's included hosting programming regionally. But 2 years ago, we really wanted to increase our focus around this area, so we added our Diversity and Inclusion in Tech Summit to the lineup. This programming has been tremendously well received by our membership, and we look forward to not only continuing to offer such opportunities, but also growing them year over year in an effort to move the needle in diversifying North Carolina's tech workforce and leadership. And that's really what the starting point of this initiative was, because we knew we needed to better understand what moving the needle looked like. And there was no way to really do this without first establishing a baseline of where tech companies are in the development and execution of their own DE&I strategies. In partnership with the Diversity Movement, RacePoint Global, on many events and activities through the years, we started talking about this project and how to make it come to fruition. We knew with the growth of North Carolina's tech sector, with announcements by such companies as Apple, Fidelity, Google, Microsoft, and many, many more, diversity, equity, and inclusion would be critical for tech companies to not only recruit and retain top talent, but also grow their bottom lines. At a recent conference for our counterparts, the tech associations and councils from across the country, I heard a presentation from Emily and Laura at Inclusion Analytics and thought they would be the perfect partner to help us manage the data collections and analysis aspects of this project. Even though they're in Nebraska, we're excited for the opportunity to work with them and welcome them to North Carolina. I'd now like to turn it over to Kurt Merriweather to share a bit more about the diversity movement and their role in this partnership. Kurt?
Tracy, thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Kurt Merriweather. I'm the Vice President of Products with the Diversity Movement. We worked with NC Tech and RacePoint to come up with a way to help organizations gauge the progress that they're making in their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And we thought it would be important for NC Tech to provide value to the members as a result of providing a benchmark like we're talking about. And the diversity movement is passionate about helping organizations create business impact from diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so in our work to unlock workplace excellence, we deliver employee experience applications to organizations so that they can track how they're moving in their own journeys. And this initiative fits very nicely with our own philosophy, and we're excited to be part of this initiative so that we can provide this value to the membership all across the state of North Carolina. So as organizations are thinking about what they can do, they can start where they are using this wonderful benchmark to continue to make progress or start their journeys no matter where they are.
And I'm Stephanie Steins from RacePoint Global, a part of the leadership here at this wonderful team, we are an agency, a communications agency that really helps to tell great brand stories. It's what we do every day. And one of our missions, our top mission, is to shape conversations that matter. And it is clear to all of you, just by being on this call, and to all of us who've been sponsoring this along with NC Tech, that this is a conversation that matters. And so for us to be a part of this benchmark study, this initiative, we're incredibly proud. So I want to get off the stage and pass it on to the folks at Inclusion Analytics and to NC Tech.
Great, thanks so much. Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're happy to be here with you. My name's Emily Adams, and together with Laura Brooks Dooland, we co-founded Inclusion Analytics, where our vision is to create workplaces that work for all. We do this by focusing on data-driven diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI, in the workplace. We use a series of assessments to collect data and help companies understand which DEI efforts are successful and which need retooling or greater support to have their intended impact. Today, we'll spend some time talking about how participating in this process as a group produces data that can be leveraged to support strategic problem solving. As we get started, we'll just quickly review our plan for this talk. Given all the macro level changes we've seen in the past couple of years, it's important to first put DEI in context and understand how our assessments help your company leverage data for better people outcomes. We'll follow that by providing an overview of the content we cover in the assessments, and we'll close our presentation by reviewing what you can expect from engaging in this process. We'll have plenty of time at the end to address questions that everyone has. So right now, most businesses are feeling the effects of the Great Resignation. Workers are leaving for a variety of reasons, including work-life balance and poor company culture, which leaves gaps in many organizations across the US. And at the end of July, there were 10.9 million jobs open. So this benchmarking study can help you understand where your company's strengths are, where your employees are satisfied, and where your peers might have a strategic advantage. This data can help you make better decisions to attract and retain talent. So when we look at data in greater detail, it can give us insights about how to mitigate risk. The tech field in particular has experienced dramatic increases in demands as people have embraced remote work and other virtual alternatives to in-person gatherings. Workers have certainly felt this increased demand and are feeling burned out, as we can see by the 4.5% increase in turnover in the field. And unfortunately, when we dig a little deeper, we see it's mid-career employees that are leaving companies at the highest rates, about 20%. These employees have a wealth of institutional knowledge and well-developed skills that are valuable to employers. This pattern doesn't seem to be slowing down anytime soon. Gallup found almost half of surveyed employees are indicating that they're actively seeking new opportunities. So there's a variety of reasons for the increase in job searching, and not all employees' needs are the same. So our assessments help you target your efforts to those individuals so that your efforts can be most effective by identifying which groups of employees need greater support. Finally, 2020 presented a pair of macro-level forces that we are still seeing the effects of: the coronavirus pandemic and the racial justice movements that were amplified by George Floyd's death. After his death, corporate silence on DEI matters were no longer socially acceptable. And as more companies publicly demonstrated their commitments to equity or failed to do so, employees sought to work for companies whose practices aligned with their values. One measurable impact stemming from George Floyd's death is a shift in how companies talk about racism. We heard a lot about individual and hidden bias before. As you can see on this graph, corporations began discussing systemic racism far more frequently in the second quarter of 2020. This shifts the focus from changing individual beliefs and actions to changing systems. Although companies cannot change individuals, they do have the ability to change the systems in their workplace. Our assessments target systems-level policies that impact the day-to-day lives of employees. We use data to direct companies to their next best step. Part of the reason we believe data is so important is so that you can make well-informed decisions. Dr. Laura Morgan Roberts and Megan Grayson said it well. Data provides an account of the current state, while goals establish the standards and metrics by which organizations demonstrate that they are becoming more inclusive, equitable, and representative. Without goals, leaders and organizations cannot hold themselves accountable for progress. At Inclusion Analytics, we believe DEI work is all about improvement over time, not the starting place. We can establish a baseline using data and track progress towards goals with follow-up measurements. Businesses that haven't started intentional DEI work and those that are mature in their DEI work both have opportunities to get better, but neither can demonstrate their success if they don't measure their efforts. Our assessments give you data-driven opportunities to improve policies and better support your employees. So now that we've covered kind of those macro level forces making DEI a workplace imperative, next we'll give an overview about our assessments and talk about the types of DEI data that we leverage.
Wonderful, thank you, Emily. So when we think about DEI data, we look at 4 topic areas. First, we examine demographics, or the diversity of the workforce. By doing so, we can see whether different groups are having equitable opportunities across the organization. Policy reviews can identify barriers that may be holding employees, customers, and partners, as well as potentially slowing business progress. Next, we look at employee perceptions to understand whether the companies and policies and practices are having the impact that is intended for employees. Finally, we believe the inclusion culture is critical for DEI success because employees experience company culture all day, every day. Next, we'll dig a little bit deeper into each of these areas. Demographic analyses can identify where inequities may exist and where there are opportunities for improvement in decision-making points, such as promotion and turnover. On the slides, we see that women make up about half of junior developers, but their representation decreases at each step up in the career ladder. This company may want to review promotion criteria or processes to understand if there are elements that influence women to be less likely to apply or to be less likely to be selected for promotions. In this segment of the policies assessment, we ask a business representative, likely an HR professional or team, to identify how many employees fit into different professional categories. For example, how many people of each gender are individual contributors, managers, or top leaders. The second quadrant of our DEI measurement circle is policies. We explore the presence of policies from 7 different categories. From overall vision to entire employee life cycle, companies can add policies or even make small tweaks to their existing policies to make them more inclusive. One policy that became common in 2020 and seems to be sticking around is a hybrid or remote work option. Although the remote work shift became popular to keep workers safe from COVID-19, sustained remote options can have many benefits for employees of all types. So let's consider the example of a breastfeeding mother who may prefer to work from home to avoid cleaning pumping supplies in the break room or bathroom. Because of the convenience and time saved, she's likely to be even more productive at home, in addition to feeling more comfortable. But maybe a company-wide remote or hybrid work policy doesn't support your organization needs. Perhaps this could be an extended benefit just for new parents as they're transitioning back to work. In this segment of the policies assessment, the HR representative or team would indicate in a yes/no format whether the company has a variety of policies and practices formally documented and operating. Next, we like to measure employees' perceptions of organizational policies and practices. As policymakers, it can be really easy to get caught up in what's actually on the books, but it's really difficult to keep up with what managers are communicating to their teams. Using our prior example of a remote work arrangement, we see that our example business does have a remote work policy. That's indicated by the yellow check mark. It appears that about half of their industry peers do as well. However, when we assess employees' perceptions of this organization, we see that almost half of them don't feel like they can utilize the remote work option. And looking at the detailed data, we see that genderqueer and Black employees are least likely to feel like they can work remotely. Clearly, the stated policy differs from the employee's experience. Therefore, it's really important to ask employees about their experiences to help leaders understand whether the policies are impacting employees in the way they intend to. It can identify who may be benefiting from policies and who may be falling through the cracks. In this segment of the people assessment, employees provide their experiences with workplace practices that correspond to the documented policies from the policy assessment. Finally, we recommend exploring your company's inclusion culture. This includes 4 critical elements: belonging, exclusion, fairness, and psychological safety. Belonging looks at whether employees feel they are valued and an important part of the company. Exclusion examines feelings of being left out, for example, of important meetings or social functions. Fairness looks at whether employees believe the same rule applies to everyone equally. And finally, psychological safety is the feeling that an employee can speak up or disagree without being punished. Together, these 4 elements constitute an inclusive culture. Understanding employees' experiences in these 4 areas allows leaders to develop, or maybe just better communicate, the policies and programs that they have in place to ensure that the workplace is inclusive and welcoming to all workers. In this segment of the people assessment, employees provide their experiences in each of these 4 factors of our inclusion culture. The policies and practices assessment consists of 2 primary parts: demographic breakdowns of employees overall and by level, as well as questions focused on policies that are currently established in your organization. Concurrently, your employees will be completing the people and perceptions assessment, which measures employees' perceptions of policies and companies' inclusion culture. Employees should expect to spend about 10 minutes on this assessment. So we'll wrap up by reviewing the process for completing the assessments. In order to participate, we have the following expectations from each organization. First, we need an accessible point person at your organization. This person will receive the links that we provide. We will keep them updated on participation rates throughout the process. And this is who will be delivering the final reports to. We ask that organizations complete the assessments within the allotted timeframe. An inclusion analytics representative will be available to answer any questions necessary during that time. We really like to see at least a 70% participation rate from employees to ensure that we have a representative sample. We ask that organizations frequently communicate with their employees, encouraging them to participate. Payment to NC Tech is due based on membership status and will be due at registration. Each participating business can expect multiple deliverables that will support their decision-making and DEI growth. We provide data summaries for quick insights and detailed data for companies that are ready to really dig in. Each business will receive a maturity model based on their policies that includes suggested next steps to help them grow. By participating as an association, businesses have access to industry comparisons to understand where they lead and where their peers excel. We can only include these comparisons when enough businesses participate, so please encourage your peers to join. These deliverables integrate organizational level data and employee level data to provide deeper understanding of how intentions translate to employee experience. Likewise, NC Tech will also receive multiple deliverables to facilitate concrete next steps. The association will receive aggregated data that visualizes strengths and opportunities for the group. They will not be able to see individual business results separately. We can use the aggregated data to help develop programming and invest resources that support the greatest number of businesses who participated. Finally, the demographic data will be aggregated across businesses and can be used to forecast future opportunities. So finally, we want to review the timeline for completion of the project. We're currently in phase 1, where we're educating everyone on the process and answering questions to help everyone feel comfortable. Registration is already open for businesses who would like to participate and will close mid-January. Phase 2 is to launch the assessments. Both business representatives and employees will have an opportunity to participate at that time. And finally, phase 3 will analyze the data and prepare the reports. At this point, association-wide communication of group-level data will go out, and finally, member businesses will receive their customized reports. That's the end of our prepared material, so we'd love to spend the remaining time answering any questions you might have about the process.
Thank you very much, Laura and Emily. As you can see, this is an exciting project, an important one as North Carolina becomes a bigger player in the tech landscape. We hope that you and your organization will consider participating to help us better understand North Carolina's tech sector in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We have some time for questions. I see that one's popped in here. Are diverse small businesses expected to participate? Laura and Emily, do you want to talk a little bit more about the size of a target organization?
Sure. Yeah, so really we're happy to work with businesses of all sizes. What comes into play is the amount of detailed data that we can give you. So small businesses, if you've got about 20 people, we probably aren't going to be able to break that data down and tell you how women versus people who identify as other genders and men feel, right? Because there aren't going to be enough people in each of those categories to keep everyone safely anonymous. So we can give you overall data, and we will certainly share your results with you no matter your size. But the larger the organization, the greater detail we can provide to you.
I see a question in the chat here around the cost to participate. The cost to participate for NC Tech members is $1,500. The cost for non-members would be $3,000.
There's also another question in the chat. How many or what is the percentage of companies do you need to participate in order to collect the proper data?
Sure. So I'd say bare minimum, we need at least 10 businesses participating so that we can ensure that, again, the businesses stay anonymous in our data reporting. We don't want anybody singled out in that aggregate data. Our goal is to learn about trends overall, not to shame any individual business on areas where they might not be mature. So individual businesses will see their own results and get their own detailed data. Only that aggregate level data will be shared with NC Tech and more broadly. So we need at least 10 businesses, preferably a little bit more, so that we can ensure those businesses do stay anonymous.
But is it safe to say the more we have, the richer the data set will be? Absolutely.
Just like the employee data, if we have more businesses participate, we can understand how tech businesses are faring compared to tech-enabled businesses. So the more businesses we have in different categories, the more we're able to give you customized peer comparison data to say, in your industry or in businesses who are like you in terms of size and scope of work, this is how you, compared to them, stack up.
to jump in there on behalf of the partnership of NC Tech Diversity Movement and Race Point Global. Our goal the first year is we would love to see at least 24 companies participate. This is intended to be an annual benchmark, so one that we hope will grow over time as more companies learn about it and feel the need to be part of the effort. But we would love to see 24, 25 companies at least participate. The companies could be a tech company or a non-tech company or a tech-enabled business. You know, it's really open to any type of company or organization to participate.
And Michelle, I'm going to tee this up for you. Where can we get more information about the program to share with others?
Sure. So we have a diversity benchmark initiative landing page on our website. We will send a follow-up email to everyone who's registered for the program this morning, and we'll include those links on how to sign up. Tracy, I don't know, maybe you can put the link in here too, if you don't mind putting that in here. I know there are some folks that joined us in the middle of the presentation. We are recording this and we'll include the recorded version in our follow-up.
And I did just add the link to the chat.
Great. Okay, so if there are no more questions, I'll go ahead and reiterate that we'll follow up after the call with some important links, including the video link for this webinar, the link to the Diversity Benchmark Initiative webpage, and how to get registered. If you have follow-up questions or would like to meet individually to ask more specific questions, don't hesitate to reach out to us and we can help facilitate that follow-up discussion.
We do have one more question that popped up in the chat. So if non-tech businesses participate, will the data be broken out by the type of business?
Yep. So again, as we mentioned, when it comes to employee groups, as well as businesses, the more organizations we have so that it can be anonymous, the more likely we're able to break that out. So as long as we have 10 non-tech businesses, then that comparison will be available to those organizations.
And it's really up to the company to which employees they want to have participate in the employee perceptions. If it's a tech-enabled business, they could opt to just include the employees within the IT operations in the technology scope of employees. So it's up to the business whether they want to include all employees or a subsect of the technology arm. Is that the last question?
I believe so.
All right, well then that concludes our call for this morning. Thank you everyone for your interest in learning more, and we hope we'll have an opportunity to work with you and see how our region's doing in the area of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Have a great afternoon.